Welcome, everybody, to the Green Team Legendarium podcast. Today, this is going to be Netflix and Green Team, or Green Team Movie Night. And today with me, I have Befuddled Panda
Hello.
and Ian from the Cinema in Seconds podcast.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Good.
And I am Yettibeats. And yes, we are going to be discussing 2021 movies in the sci-fi fantasy genre. Someone may try to sneak in a horror film. We shall see. But yeah, we're doing a sort of top five films that we saw this year. And
That were released in 2021.
yes, released in 2021. Watching Lord of the Rings every December does not count this year, unfortunately. We all do it. We all know.
Do you do that? Do you watch it every December?
I usually
Or
do.
close to?
I haven't yet, but I have. We're recording this a few days after Christmas. I have like 3 days left. It's
You
gonna
got a
happen.
couple days, yeah.
Yeah, so
That might be my Christmas Eve, actually. I'm not Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve.
too late,
Nice.
man. Christmas Eve. Yeah.
My New Year's Eve.
So to first start it off, let's just talk about how was your viewing experience this year, seeing movies in 2021, specifically fantasy and sci-fi movies. Panda, start with you. Did you get to see as many as you'd like?
I did not see as many as I'd like, which is kind of weird because a lot of films were still like coming out, being available on streaming and not only exclusively in theaters. So you would think like I would have see more of them, but I didn't. I've actually seen quite a few films in the theater. So that was nice. A lot of times the theaters were pretty empty, so that was also a different kind of experience. But yeah, I did not see as many as I would have liked, but the ones that I did see, I feel like I made a point to see them.
Yeah, makes sense.
What about you, Ian? Did you see as many movies as you'd like, or gravitate more towards TV?
I kind of looking back on the year, I don't think I've seen as many new movies as I would like to. And I think part of that is just the way that they're releasing movies right now, because they really like backload the movies that they're releasing.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, and like in summer, there were a few movies I really wanted to see, and I did go see them. But otherwise, there wasn't a lot out there that I wanted to see when I've got all the time in the world to go to movies. And then when school starts up, I'm pretty busy because I'm starting a new school year because I'm a teacher, and I jump right into coaching again. And so like all my weekends are booked with coaching, and that's when they release everything. And I'm like, I have no time to see these movies now that they're releasing. So I'm like
Aw.
doing big time catch up now. Now in December, that's my catch up time. So not as many as I would like.
Yeah, it's funny that December for me too has been like a wicked catch-up time where I'm like, I feel like exhausted from watching movies all day. My parents are like, "What have you been doing?" I'm like, 3 movies all day. I'm
Oh
almost
my
caught up.
goodness.
Yeah, but it's also,
Oh,
I don't
man.
know how the theaters are with you, but I think because not as many people are going because of the pandemic, obviously, and there's just so much other content to watch with streaming, that the movie times. So
Hmm.
like, I used to go to the movies at like 10 a.m. on a Sunday, and if I had other things
Oh.
to do, I could get them done that day, or if I had other obligations. Whereas now, like the earliest ones are around like 12:30 in the afternoon, and a lot of the
Mm.
late shows are like 8:30, and there's nothing later than that. And it's, I don't know, it's just a different time from even like 15 years ago when I
Yeah.
was in high school, where it's like we would go to like 11 o'clock show. We
Yeah.
get out at 1 a.m. for. I mean, obviously I could stay awake better back then, but it's just the times were more flexible.
Yeah.
I've noticed
I
back then.
think part of it is probably labor shortage and just like hours being worked
Yeah.
are constraining operation hours. Yeah.
Yeah. And Panda, what you were saying with less people being in the theaters, I went to a West Side Story last week. I was the
Hmm.
only person in the entire theater. I had the entire place to
Whoa.
myself. Yeah, it was insane, which is kind of sad because
Wow.
more people should see it. But,
Yeah.
Story of
But I
this
mean,
movie season.
yeah, it is what it is.
So nobody was in the theater to see you cry. Then is what you're saying.
Or see you dance.
I
Oh
say,
Ooh.
yeah,
yeah,
there you
yeah. We won't mention that.
go. So I will bring up. I think we all wanted to talk about a little bit. So with fantasy and sci-fi in general, I think we made a good list this year. I love our list. It's all pretty different, but it definitely seems like television is the go-to for these types of stories. Whether I kind of had the I between reading books and movies, I've given up on television. Not given up. I just do not have the time. I was able to watch Wheel
Hmm.
of Time, but other than that, I'm sure you guys maybe watched more than I did. Did you see TV shows that you enjoyed more, or that do you think that this is just where it's gravitating towards? I mean, I could think of like 10 off the top of my head that are sci-fi, mainstream sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I
It's fantasy, especially, I think, is moving more towards TV, which is a weird trend that you never would have thought of back in the Hercules and Xena days. But uh, yeah,
I
but
love
there's
those
some big
shows.
shows now.
I enjoyed those.
Well, yes, I did
Oh,
too,
me,
but
I grew up on him. Kevin Sorbo, not so much the person, but yeah, his Hercules definitely.
but they didn't exactly take the world by storm like Game of Thrones has, for example. But yeah,
They definitely made their mark in pop culture, I think. But thinking back, I actually haven't watched very many of the SFF TV shows, aside from the Marvel ones and Star Wars. So, um, yeah, I guess like Foundation, and I haven't gotten to Wheel of Time. I've only watched the first episode of season 2 of The Witcher, so I have quite a bit of catching up to do in the TV realm.
Yeah, it just seems like to me, we're in a fantasy Discord, science fiction Discord, and all the books and authors we love, we just always see them being picked up by television. For
yeah,
television, like the Witcher, Expanse, obviously Wheel of Time, Station 11, like they're going. These are the stuff. This is the stuff we read. Whereas, like, can you imagine if like I don't know, Joe Abercrombie was, or even the Red Rising was picked up for a movie? Like, it just seems like they're all going to go straight to TV. Whereas it kind of
Hmm.
leaves our list to, like you said, Marvel movies or superhero movies, um, and maybe one
Or indie
big,
films.
yeah,
mhm.
sci-fi particularly can have good indie science fiction, which I was looking out for this year. I wish there was more, but you're right. They'd have to be low budget kind of sci-fi indie films. You just I don't know. You're right, Ian. Especially fantasy. It doesn't seem like it's a thing in movies anymore. Whether
Well,
I
it's
think
not marketable or not.
with fantasy, I do tend to see more fantasy movies in like the younger age range.
yeah,
So with Disney, like they're still making fantasy films for younger audiences, like Encanto, Raya came out this year. Yeah.
and I think with TV, especially with these series like a Wheel of Time, right? They need that extra space because they're so long.
The flexibility.
Yeah, and so the TV shows give them that. I mean, I always lean more towards movies and TV shows personally, like that's my preference, but I can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the Wheel of Time, you can't tell in four. You're never going to get 14 films out of that, or even
I
maybe
would
three.
not watch it.
So you're right. It's probably the medium's probably just more conducive for storytelling when you're telling big fantasy epics, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
And I think part of it is like technology has gotten so advanced and cheaper. Like good technology has gotten cheaper to be able to have like cinematic quality for TV.
Yeah, absolutely. Like The Mandalorian, for example, the production quality of that is astounding. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost movie level. And if they can
unreal.
pull that
Mm-hmm.
off, I mean, that's also one of the most expensive TV shows ever made, but they're pulling that stuff off now, and it's impressive.
Yeah. I think streaming did help with transition some of the I guess bias towards TV. So, yeah.
Um, did you? I'll just ask before we start our list. I think I know the answers, but do you prefer to watch film streaming, or are we still theater people here?
I'm theater all the way.
Yeah.
I mean, streaming is fine, but I'm still somebody who collects Blu-rays and watches my Blu-rays, and I go to the theaters whenever I can because and I was actually thinking about this the other day. I think what I'm really liking about it now is that it frees you from distractions when you're in a theater. Yeah. Whereas watching from home, I'm distracted by everything at home. And yeah, and I appreciate
it's the
that.
reason I'm convinced, and this is movies but not fantasy. I'm convinced it's the reason why The Power of the Dog isn't getting as much. I think that it's more mixed reviews. As if it would have just released in theaters, I think more people would have enjoyed that movie. Anyway, that's not a fantasy movie at all. You cannot look at your phone during that movie. But okay, good stuff. So,
Panda, are you streaming or theater?
I am definitely always myself. I love the theater. I don't always agree that. I think some people will say you have to see this movie in a theater, and I don't ever usually agree with that. I think it can be enhanced, definitely. It's one of the points for a couple of our movies I think we're going to make is that these are theater experiences. It totally changed either because of the audience or the sound or visuals. That I think a lot of these movies are like, I'm glad I saw it in the theater, and I'm sure you guys are too. What about you, Panda?
I'm a little mixed. One, I really like being able to hit pause so that I can go run to the restroom. I hate having to go to the restroom during a movie at the theater.
You're like, is this scene coming up going to be important, or is now a good time? Yeah.
I know. Well, especially like I don't want to disrupt other people, you know? So I go to the restroom like 3 times before a movie starts. And then the other thing is like I'm still not comfortable eating in a movie theater. So it's just like snack free, beverage free for me right now. But at home, like I can have all the snacks. So, but sound quality, size of screen, that all dark experience, I still love the theater.
When I saw Dune in theaters, I didn't have like a drink for the first like 8 hours of the day. I was like, I'm not coming to the bathroom during this long movie. It's not gonna happen.
That's
I hate it. Once you hit your 30s, man, I'm telling you, it's like you one sip of soda and it's on immediately.
Even before I was 30, like that was my experience. Anyway, that's TMI. Okay, yeah, let's get going with the list.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we're going to do our top 5. And Ian, let's start with you. This probably the most recent movie on this list. Yeah,
it is, because I just saw it 2 days ago. So I'm going to put my number 5. I'm going to put Matrix, the new Matrix Resurrections, which just came out last week.
Or is it?
Who here has seen it?
Me. I just watched it today.
Yes, right.
I have not seen it, but I've read a lot about it. I know it's I kind of know. Get the gist.
And I guess we should say we're going to try to keep this as spoiler free as possible. And if we're going to talk about spoilers, we are going to give a spoiler warning before we dive in. Right.
Yeah, and I don't think I will with Matrix, especially since Yeti hasn't seen it yet. But it's interesting because when I was watching it, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not sure where this is going. I'm not sure that it's doing anything particularly interesting until I kind of got out of the theater and I was like, actually, yeah, it was. Like it was definitely there was definitely a purpose for it being made. And I like what it ended up doing, especially at the end. Especially with like I like where the Neo and Trinity story went quite a bit, actually. I think the movie ended quite strongly. There's a lot of interesting meta moments in the movie that I didn't really work for me. Like it felt a little clunky.
I think I know at least one of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I would say I
feel the same.
There's 2 major scenes where that comes through quite a bit. And I'm still not sure how I feel about those. And it's also hard because you're comparing it to like one of the biggest and best movies of recent years, right? Because obviously you're going to compare it to the original. And I don't think it does anything quite as well as the original Matrix. but I don't know. Is that fair to put on the sequel? Like the action scenes aren't what the Matrix action scenes are, but they're still entertaining, and the story is interesting, and it definitely justifies its existence, because if you've seen the third movie, you're wondering, how is this gonna happen? How are they bringing these characters back? But I think that they actually do a pretty good job of coming up with explanations for all that. And I don't know, I liked it. I thought it was entertaining. I think Keanu Reeves is awesome. Carrie-Anne Moss is awesome. And it was just really nice seeing them back in those roles again.
Did you rewatch the first three before watching this newest one?
No, no, I did not.
Me
But I've
neither.
seen them. I've seen them lots. Like they're in my head. Like especially the first Matrix. That's the
Yeah,
movie
that's
that
the one
doesn't
I've
really
seen the
leave.
most.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't really remember like what happened in the third one, and I was like, should I rewatch it before going in? I was like, nah. And I just went in. And honestly, like I had fun. Like I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There were moments where I was just like, okay, yeah, come on, let's get it going. And then there were moments when I was like, oh, this is okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. The ending, I'm not sure.
Oh no.
I'm curious to see what happens after.
And see, I'd be okay if nothing happens after. Like I'd be okay if they just ended it here and then that's it.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place to end it
I
off.
I would be okay if this was the end, but I don't think it
But
is.
we're in
And
modern
so I'm
Hollywood
curious.
and nothing is ever the end anymore.
So I'm curious to see where it's gonna go
Yeah,
after.
that's true.
It's funny, in a lot of some of the reviews, I've seen it like modeled after, not modeled, but compared to like Ocean's 12 when you talk about the meta part, or what's the Wes Craven one? A
Okay,
New
yeah.
Nightmare.
A New
Yeah,
Nightmare
and
I've heard a
it's
lot, yeah.
I'm just I'm kind of shocked that it went that route. But to your point, Ian, where you say like how does it compare to the original, or how can it? And it's such a different time. Like when the Matrix came out, that was like the epitome of cool. When Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu at the end were walking down, like that final gun scene where they're walking on walls and stuff, like that was so cool. Like it was just like the glasses, the coats, and I just don't think you can replicate that. And replicate is a good word to use for this new film, because I'm pretty sure they actually literally may do some of that in the movie. Um, and I actually think it might be smart to take this more of a winking tone with this movie, which they were gravitating. Let's be honest to that. It was the second and third films I think were a little less serious than the original Matrix were too. But I think
Mm.
that first one stands alone because it took itself so seriously, and it worked
And
in
it
that
was
sense.
the first. Like
Right.
it did a lot of firsts. So it was
Yeah, it
new.
really did. And this one doesn't try to replicate it, I don't think. Like, this one doesn't replicate it in the same sense of, let's try to make bigger, better action scenes, but kind of in the same vein. I think that it's okay. The movie's comfortable not doing that, which is, like, kind of a relief in a way. Like, it's okay being its own thing in a sense,
You mean
too.
it's not like a Fast and Furious movie?
Well,
I don't want
yes.
to give spoilers away, but when I mean replicate, I'm pretty sure the very first scene is very similar to another very first scene in a certain movie.
Well,
If I'm,
you're just gonna have to watch to
Yeah.
find out. That's all we're gonna say.
all right, Panda, what about your number 5? This should be not
Okay.
controversial at all.
So I just watched this film like on Christmas, which is not really a Christmassy mood film. I watched Don't Look Up, the new
Mm.
Adam McKay film, and yeah. I
So,
can't say too much because I mean the film is not subtle. Like it's definitely political, it's definitely controversial in a lot of ways, depending on your perspective of the world. But what I really appreciated is that he really captures the current human condition very, very well. And it's just horrifying seeing that reflected and like mirrored.
I agree.
And
Oh, go ahead.
I couldn't look away. Like there were definitely parts that I didn't like because they were too ridiculous, but overall the film just really reflected where we are today, and it's scary.
I agree. I would say, well, so for people who haven't seen this movie or any of the movies, maybe we should give a quick synopsis. This one is just two scientists find out that essentially a comet is going to hit the Earth, a planet level extinction, Armageddon style comet, and they
Mm-hmm.
try to convince important people to do something about it, essentially.
Yep.
But I agree. To your point, I think McKay just has a knack for pinpointing the societal quirks that we have as
Mm-hmm.
humans. This isn't a spoiler, but just a certain scene or a certain scene, they're talking about, they know this comet's coming. They know they have a certain amount of time to fix this, and yet these characters will still have a laugh over a celebrity's breakup, or say,
Yeah.
oh, that's too bad. And that's so true. Us humans get so distracted nowadays over something so minimal, and even knowing
Trivial.
impending doom is upon us. I thought the way he could pinpoint those things was really, honestly, it was tough to look in the mirror after some of that
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
Ian, you just saw this, right?
well, I finished it 10 minutes before we started recording. So yeah, very recently. And yeah, like it's definitely analogous to something like climate change, I think is what he's going for. But
100%. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but there's a lot to be said about the pandemic as well. And,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I mean, you guys said it all. It's a harsh look at where we're at in the mirror right now. And I mean, Adam McKay, he has a tendency to rub people the wrong way in the way that he approaches things, and I think it is because he's so unabashed with what he's doing, right? And he's very in
Mm-hmm.
your face about it, and I think that turns a lot of people off because this movie's been getting quite mixed reviews and some pretty harsh negative reviews. But I would say give it a chance and yeah, make up your own mind. That would be my
Mm-hmm.
advice.
I'm really curious come Oscar season how this does. The Academy weirdly loves McKay. I mean, Vice got quite a bit of nominations, and I actually think this will too when it comes down to it. But I will say, Panda, I was going to quibble that if this was a sci-fi or fantasy movie because I thought this actually felt too real of a movie, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about, I wanted it to be on here, so I didn't care that much. But
Yeah, the lines are a bit blurred, but I do think, I mean, it is sci-fi because of certain technology that is pretty
that's true.
prominent in
That's
the
true.
story.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And with like the characters, I'd say in 2015, politically, I think this would have been a fantasy. Afterwards, not so much. I do not think so. I'll leave that at that.
What
Um,
I will say is like the performances delivered by all these like A-list celebrities, like actors, it it was pretty amazing.
Kate
The
Blanchett was
performances.
awesome.
Oh my goodness. I didn't
She was
even
so good.
recognize her. Like it took me so long to recognize like, wait, that's oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
her and Tyler Perry were too good at that morning host
they were so
Yeah,
good.
they were.
position. It's just scarily
I'd
good.
watch that show if
They were
yeah,
very
if it
funny.
were real,
Me
I'd
too.
watch it.
Yeah, I'd say I would definitely recommend people to watch it. If nothing else, everyone has said this, good and bad, for Jonah Hill's performance. I mean, he's just a delight. I don't know how much of that was even scripted, but he's a gift that keeps
I
giving.
wanted to
I'm
punch him
always a
so
fan
many
of his.
times though.
Yeah.
Of course. Um,
Anyway.
all right, I'll go to my number five. I originally was going to put Ian's number two, but I held off because we'll talk about that.
Ooh.
It's fine to leave a little cliffhanger there. But I'm going to go
Mm.
with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. It came out earlier in the
Ooh.
year. This is The Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad from David Ayer, which was not good. It was a very terrible movie. We do not need an Ayer cut. I'm going to say that first and foremost. Um, yeah, so I saw this on HBO Max when it came out. I was honestly blown away by how much I enjoyed it. I think one of my main reviews for it was most DC movies I come out of just mildly disappointed, and I
Mm.
feel like they're a missed opportunity. It started with Man of Steel. I said this could have been so much better, but it wasn't. And from there on out, I've always said that. And this is the first DC movie for me, at least, where I've come out and I've said I would watch 10 of these with different characters, whatever, just whatever storyline. But I came out wanting more, and I was so relieved. I thought the chemistry between all the actors were incredible, quite frankly. And if you don't know the Suicide Squad, it's a bunch of reject villains and superheroes who are pretty much working for the government on suicide missions, doing the worst jobs, and they have bombs implanted. It's not anything crazy, but I was just I love things that are different and weird, and there's no one better to do that than James Gunn, especially now that he has the shackles off. He's not working for Disney on this project, which I love Disney, but you can only go so far with what you create. There's parameters, you're in a box a little bit, and it's rated R, and he totally took advantage of that. No character was safe, which is a big theme of the Suicide Squad. Um, and it was a delight. The actress who plays. Have you guys seen this? Either of you?
I have not.
I have not. Sorry.
It's definitely one of those that I meant to, but then for whatever reason I didn't.
I would. I definitely. I think it's the best DC live action film they've ever put out.
Ooh.
Bold.
Okay.
Post Nolan. Not the Nolan ones, but everything after that. It's so fun.
Even Green Lantern.
I will fight for that movie. I can put that on a Sunday afternoon. I have no problem with that.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, you're not missing out. No, but it's obviously gruesome. I found the humor funny. It might be a little gratuitous. There's obviously blood and gore, some vulgarity. I usually like that stuff, and it's heartfelt. There's one character I don't know her name. I've never seen her in anything. She plays this rat catcher character, and it's a really sweet movie. And the way he's able to blend as a director, and you've seen it in Guardians, the first Guardians too, where you can have heartfelt moments, comedy, action, and things like that. He really knows how to do that stuff. And the one Letterbox review said, "Thank God for the Twitter trolls that forced him to leave Disney, and now he gets to make this and Guardians 3." And I couldn't agree more. I'm so happy that he signed on to this project. And a terrible title, I will say, The Suicide Squad, but it's worth it.
Yeah, that bothers me a lot.
Okay.
And isn't John Cena's character getting his own TV show too?
Oh, is it?
I thought I heard something like that.
Nice.
He's getting his own HBO Max show. They had a trailer for it, and it definitely you saw Fast 9, right, Panda?
Yep.
So I thought he was fairly abysmal in that. I don't think they did a good job. I thought he was kind of like a cutout of just no personality. And in this, it's when he does comedy, there's some Hulu comedy he was in too that he's fantastic. When he's got more range than honestly his counterpart in Dwayne Johnson, maybe not Batista, but he's really funny, and he really makes this movie. Honestly, I was blown away by how good he was, and he was a delight. I was surprised how funny he was.
I am convinced. I am going to watch that before the end of January.
Highly recommend it.
Nice.
All right, let's see. No, we're not getting to you yet, Ian. All right, Panda, what about your number 4?
Okay, honestly, I had a really hard time with the slot because I'm still kind of torn. It's either Black Widow or Snyder's cut for Justice League.
Oh my God.
And am I kicked off now?
No, I'm not gonna judge. All right, whatever you enjoy.
Well, yes, I mean here, I fully am transparent about my movie taste. I mean, Transformers, Fast and Furious, like you can judge all you want.
I love it.
But I did end up going with Black Widow mostly because I think it just has more of like the whole package than Snyder's cut for Justice League. Honestly, Elena just like stole the movie.
Yep.
Scarlett Johansson was
Agreed.
great as Black Widow, and I really like her character. But Elena, like, Florence Pugh is just such a magnetic force.
I agree. She's fantastic.
100%. She that this was, in my opinion, her movie. I know it's called Black Widow, but I think this was their way to introduce her into the MCU. She fits seamlessly into it, with
Mm-hmm.
just her one-liners, her presence. I was kind of worried if she's. I mean, she's tiny. If you've ever seen her, I was like, is anyone going to believe that she could actually, kick butt? And she and it
Hey.
wasn't even a question. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not against short people. I'm sorry. I just, well, you never know. And yeah, I'm with you. I think the movie was worth it to watch just for her,
Mm-hmm.
literally for her. And David Harbour. I thought
Mm-hmm.
he had some good funny lines in
So I did end up watching it on streaming, but and I was watching it like virtually with a few friends, and we just all had a blast, which I guess that's the other thing when we were talking about, do you prefer watching it at home versus in the theater? There are some pros of watching it at home where it's like I can talk to, like, have a real-time interaction with other people to appreciate what we're all seeing together. And I do wish that I also got to see it in theaters because the feel of the movie, um, it was a bit diminished watching it at home, but overall it was great.
I do wish. I wish Marvel made this movie earlier. I think the timeline
I
really kind of screwed
know.
people, and I think they kind of hesitated on doing it, and it hurt them a little bit because you're never totally sure.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of confused when this happened. I mean, I know it takes place obviously before Infinity War, but I still just like I was just like I just don't. There's too
Yeah.
many movies. I can't
It's not
place when this was.
important.
I know.
Not important.
It's
Yeah,
true. So, Ian, you did
I
see
think it's
this?
fine just existing on its own. Yeah, we saw it. Yep. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I know some people are down on it. They're kind of like, as far
Why?
as Marvel, I don't know. I don't really know because when I first went into it, I was apprehensive because I'm like, this kind of looks like dreary and kind of just like a
Mm.
boring spy movie is kind of the sense that you got. But there's a lot of life in this movie, and it's
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit of fun. Yeah, and I enjoyed it a lot. And Florence Pugh is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. She's a star. She's an up and coming star for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was your number four. All right, Ian. Let's keep the superhero thing going. We'll get this over with. Your number four.
Okay, my number four is Spider Man, No Way Home, which normally I wouldn't default to all superhero movies being sci-fi, but I think this one justifies it with the idea of the multiverse. I think there's a lot of science fiction aspects to it that make it fit this list. But I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
we want to approach talking about this movie. So I think I'll just say right now is that I don't I'm not as hyperbolic as a lot of people are about it. Like I'm still tempered on my opinions about it, but I definitely enjoyed it. There's some aspects that I think were tricky to pull off that I think they actually pulled off quite well, and it's fairly heartfelt in how they
Mm.
build the characters more so than I would say the other two Spider-Man movies were. The last two MCU Spider-Man movies were, and I think that they pulled it off really well. What they were trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
and you've both seen it, correct?
I have.
Oh yes, twice.
Twice.
So
Twice.
so this was my number two. Um, I
Aha.
I was hyperbolic about it and still am. I try to listen. This will always happen. You have something that is so successful and gets so much praise. There's always, once you see it after that, I feel like a lot of people, not you, Ian, but I feel like people when you saw it in the reviews were like, "Well, is it really that good?" And it's like, okay, I get it. It's not Citizen Kane, but for me, a lot of this hinges. If you've seen the trailers, I do not think this is a spoiler to say, but I think a lot of it hinges on your enjoyment and your history with the Raimi films, the Raimi Spider-Man films. And if you, like I did, grew up with them and loved them, I mean, that was my first foray into comic book movies. That and I guess X-Men, but I saw them all around the same time. I
Mm.
I do not I do not understand. how they pulled off certain moments so seamlessly and so well that honestly should not have worked. Uh, and I'm really trying to dance around things. I think I think they integrated certain moments, I'll say, in yes, a fan servicey way, but ones that actually were contributing to the story and almost necessary to Tom Holland's story, Spider-Man's story. Whereas you've seen
Mm-hmm.
other
Yeah.
films, even this year, such as Ghostbusters Afterlife, do it horribly and do it just for a cash grab, fan servicey way. And the fact that this was not that, well, it was definitely cash grabby, but because it's all about cash. But they also did it. That was telling. That was. I couldn't believe that it was. Some things were so vital to the story, even if you knew they were coming,
Yeah.
because we're not idiots. I could not believe that the last hour of the film to me was perfect. Again, someone who grew up on comic book films, and they're not my favorite. I don't, I could give or take them, but there's just some sort of nostalgia, adrenaline that was shot into you. And when you talk about theater experiences, this I'm so glad I saw this on opening weekend. I called out sick
Yes.
from work to go see it, and it was totally worth it. I can't. It's that the theater experience. There's nothing like it when you have a room full of people who are kind of on the same wavelength and excitement as you are. Whether it's this, whether it's House of Gucci, get excited to see Jared Leto. I mean, it's the same thing, and I, that's what I think. Listen, a year from now, this is probably I'll probably yes, I will probably like Dune more than this movie, but just kind of see, and it's obviously a better movie. But as an experience, I mean, it's something I will never forget. I will never forget sitting in that seat watching those things for
Yeah.
the first time. The fifth time, yes, it probably will be tiring, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just how it goes. I mean, it's so. But Panda, what about you? I
Yeah.
know you saw it.
So I saw it the day after Christmas. So I didn't see it like right when everybody else was seeing it. Um, I did find the first like half of the film to be okay. It was a bit meh. It was just it felt a bit clunky the way that they were building up the story and setting everything up. And then the second half of the film, I was like, okay, this is much better. There weren't a lot of surprises for me. Like I stayed away from the internet, stayed away from spoilers and everything, but there weren't that many surprises for me. There was one particular thing that did happen that I was not expecting, and then what happened afterwards, I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. I did think they played up a certain aspect a little too much, and it didn't quite work for me. I understand why they did it, but it's just too kind of like beating your head with it. Um, so it did not make my top five. I think it's still a really good Spider-Man film.
I will say I do think I noticed this on rewatch. I think Marvel. Well, I think there's laziness in the writing at a certain point with some of their
Hmm.
recent films, definitely, where I think they knew they had to get to a certain point in the story they wanted to
Yeah.
get to, and they kind of bent rules to make this happen, or to that, and the storytelling, especially in that first hour or the first half, is like, all right, well, this is kind of ridiculous that it's getting, this probably wouldn't
Yeah.
happen, or this is not in line with character, or something
Yeah.
you've laid groundwork for the last X amount of movies. This doesn't make sense. Totally admit that, and I noticed it 100% during the rewatch. But again, I agree. It just that last hour, I just think is it's movies are supposed to bring out emotions. I'm trying to,
Yep.
well, that's what movies are. I mean, it makes you a kid again.
Yep.
Whether it's superhero movies or musicals or any type of thing, and I that did
Hmm.
it so well. At least on first watch. Again, I'm just judging this on my first watch, and the 10th watch, maybe doesn't hold up as well. But yeah, what are you gonna do?
I will confirm what you like.
Hmm.
Watching this with a theater was pretty cool because yeah, right. Like people were excited, and there were certain moments that happened, and people got excited, and it was like it's been a while. It's been a while since this has
Mm-hmm.
happened, right? Like
Right.
this kind of it took me back to like Star Wars premieres, right, where people would just get excited about
Mm.
everything, and and it's fun. Like there's that communal experience that really works, and yeah, right, and it definitely worked in this movie. And I was surprised. There were things that I did not think were actually going to happen, because I mean there were rumors, and I'm like, well, I know
Okay,
it.
we can't go there.
No,
We
we can't go
We
there.
can't go
But
there.
I'll just
No, no, no,
say,
no, no.
there's lots of things that I actually was taken aback by that were fun, pleasant surprises.
I'll just
Mhm.
end it with this. I I don't think this is a spoiler, but I was surprised by the way that this movie essentially affected previous movies, I guess. And I'm not going to say which movies, but it honestly altered the way you look at characters in those movies. Hey, I could be talking about other Marvel movies. You don't know, but
Okay.
um,
I think
but
we're just really, really close right
yeah,
now.
well, we're on the line. But that just saying that was very impressive that they could actually do that in a believable way and an impactful way. So, man, that's enough out of that. Go see Spider Man if you want to. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure everybody has already. Look how much money it's made. Everyone's seen it now.
I would
Over a
say
billion.
like
That's
if you
ridiculous.
haven't been spoiled yet, please go see
Yeah,
it, and then you can revel in all of the discussion.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll go with my number 4. This one might also be cheating, but I don't care. Uh, I picked, so for my number 4, I did Old by M. Night Shyamalan, which is quick synopsis. Essentially, a family goes on vacation and they are at the hotel. They say there's this nice private beach that no one really goes to, and it's beautiful. And they go there and they start aging very quickly. It's horrifying, obviously. No one wants that.
Oh, okay.
So, an hour is actually 3 years and things like that. And I'm not going to, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, so I'm definitely not going to go into much more than that. If that sounds intriguing to you or if you like him, go check it out. But essentially, it's my number 4 because I have such an admiration for him for his devotion to telling original storytelling ideas, I guess, despite
Hmm.
any and all criticism that he's gotten throughout the years. I mean, his career has been honestly, it's like a rolling hill where it's up and down and up and down, and he's still just vigilant in making things that he finds interesting, and it's an original voice, and essentially this was like a mid-level blockbuster. It wasn't an indie, it wasn't big budget, but it was a mid-budget, and it made a decent amount of money. And I can't think of anyone else who consistently does that. And I just really liked it. I would say, he has a twist ending in this, like every other one. He got, people made fun of the twist ending in this one, like they do with almost everyone after The Sixth Sense. I don't think the ending was all that important to the story at all. The acting's
Hmm.
fantastic. The girl from Jojo Rabbit is in this, and she was now in the new Last Night in
Oh.
Soho. Mackenzie, her
Right.
name, but she's like, I think she's one of the best up and coming actors we have, and the cast is fantastic. The way it looks on the beach. It's usually he films in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, outside Philadelphia, which is where I grew up. He's from the area, so Signs or The Sixth Sense, they're all around that area. This one's just on a beach for the majority of it, and he brings like one family, a couple families. It's like a small cast of characters, and it's one of those movies where one set location where characters bounce off each other in this ridiculous scenario. I cannot imagine being stuck with my family in any just one place for too long, let alone where we're all aging too rapidly. Um, and I got to give him credit. There's a character in this who's a rapper, and he named him Mid-Size Sedan. And you got to respect the balls
Oh
on
my
someone who just names
goodness.
a rapper that. Yeah, I will. I don't know about you guys, your history with M Night Shyamalan. Some might say, "Hey, you're putting horror in here," because we could put horror on this list. I think that's genre fiction, but there's just so much horror that I do. That's kind of its own thing. I would argue M Night is a genre of himself. I wouldn't even consider him horror. I think when you go to see his movie, like, oh, what kind of movie is it? It's an M Night movie. It's so they all are. So, but neither of you
Yeah.
have seen this, I assume.
I have not. I've only seen the trailer.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
honestly I kind of forgot about it. I was intrigued. I wanted to see it, and then I just kind of I don't know. It didn't get talked about a lot, and kind of just slipped under my radar. But thanks
I
for bringing
haven't
it
watched
back.
his I haven't watched his films for many years now. Yeah. It's horror is not my genre. I would say you're right, Yeti, that he is his own genre. Like I can stomach his films a bit better than outright horror. Um, I am intrigued to see what the twist is in this one, just like how he resolves this whole situation. Um, but it's not something that I'm like, oh, I have to bump it up on my list or anything.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think it was just refreshing again. I kind of said it, but we don't have these mid-budgeted movies anymore. They just don't make these, or they're not as much,
Yeah,
and you can just go in and one viewing. There's no sequel. There's no anything else. It's an original story. This director wanted to tell, and that's genre fiction. You just never see it. And it was so nice. I think I rented it on Redbox, and I just sat down and just uh, I don't know. And you have low expectations because it's M Night Shyamalan again. Who knows what you're going to get? And it was just such a pleasant experience. The ending, I did have that feeling though, Panda, where this is a weird
Hmm.
comparison, but the Chronicle, Thomas Covenant Chronicles, the book series. Have you ever heard of that? When I read
Yeah.
those books, I love those books, but the whole thing was I just need to see how this ends. I need to read this to see what goes on, and I felt that with Old too. I'm like, all right, what this is such an intriguing concept, and he's always so good at that with these weird concepts or
Yeah.
these
yeah.
fascinating things, and he deals with a lot more than that in the themes. But that was a big pulling point for me. I will say the ending does not.
Hmm.
You will be disappointed. I'm sure if that's what you're totally going for, but
Oh,
not
okay.
to. I didn't. I wasn't disappointed, but I could see why people were like, okay, I
I
get
see.
it.
Well, I'm intrigued. I'm gonna try to check it out. I I don't know where. Is it anywhere to watch right now, or is it just up for rental? I wonder.
I
I
think
don't know.
just rental, maybe HBO Max, but I don't think so. I think it's probably you have to
Yeah,
rent it on the iTunes store or something.
we don't have that up here in Canada.
No. I'll Venmo you. Don't worry. You can.
No
So you can
HBO
rent it.
Max.
My treat. All right. Let's go to Panda. Let's do this. You're number three. This is going to be a big one.
My
Also, my
number
number three.
three. I put Dune as my
There
number
it is.
three.
There we go.
So
Yep.
my number three, your number three, Ian's Big Tamale,
This
his
is
number one.
this is my number one film of the year. Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are probably in agreement with Ian here. They are judging Panda and I quite heavily.
Hey,
So
it's in the top
I
three.
can talk through why it's my number three.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when I reveal my two and my number one. But I really enjoyed it. I saw it twice. I saw it first in IMAX, and then the second time streaming. And I didn't have the issues that a lot of people seem to have with the audio. Like, I don't know if it was
No,
like
I
the
had no issues.
volume in the theater. But I didn't have issues with that. Everything was pretty good for me. I really appreciated the cinematography of this film. It was beautiful. I I should admit that I have never read the original text. I did read a graphic novel adaptation of like the first part of the book. So, um, I had more of an idea and understanding of what was happening because I read that. If I hadn't read it, I would have been more lost, and I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as I did.
Hmm.
And there's like the complaint about because this is only part one, and then we have to wait for part two, and the way that part one ended, like um, people have issues with it. I personally didn't. I mean, that was the part where the graphic novel did not cover, and I was like, I don't know what's happening, but cool. And I knew there was a second part coming, so I was like, all right. Yeah, anyway, I personally really enjoyed all the performances, the way that they changed some of the things. from the original text. There is one particular scene from the books that did not make it in to the movie, and I really wish it had, although it would probably have been really hard to adapt that part, and for time's sake, I think they just cut it. So overall, I really enjoyed it, and I would totally see it again.
Ian, you're number one?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of what Panda said. I don't have any of the major, I don't have issues with the ending either. But this was absolutely stunning in my view. Like, I walked out of that theater and I turned to my friends and I said, I haven't been that impressed with how well a movie looks in a long time. A long time. Like, it wowed me. And movies, we're almost in this weird spot where, you know, movies can do anything, right? The technology is at a point where it's not you see a dinosaur and you're amazed anymore, right? But Dune actually amazed me with what they did, and I loved it. I loved it. It seemed like it was tailor made to me, because I read the book a long time ago, but it's always been one that I've loved, and I've read it a number of times since then. But I think even if I hadn't, I would still probably love it. It's just such a unique look to it, and the casting is perfect. Like, the casting is pretty much spot on.
I agree.
Everyone does an amazing job. Denis Villeneuve is becoming one of my top directors these days, because Arrival is like one of my favorite movies of the last decade. And when I heard he was making this movie, and then when I heard who was in the movie and what roles they were playing, I was just so excited. And the fact that it met and exceeded all the high expectations I had for it really says something. I haven't been this excited about a movie in a long time.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. The visuals, you know, it says something to filming on location. You know, so much is green screen now, and obviously the ships aren't real. But the way he fused on location shots and practical effects with actual CGI and got the looks he did. I mean, the one shot of the ship coming out of the water in the beginning, I love, you know, I think before they were going to Arrakis, I like caught my breath. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is, like you said, it's a childlike wonder when you're sitting in there and you're like, how does someone do this? Like, honestly, how does someone do this? It was kind of like when I was a kid watching Jurassic Park. I was like, how is there a T-Rex walking? I was like, this is not real. So visually, I agree. I mean, he was the perfect person to pair up with this story. I like it that you guys talked about the casting, and something I thought was very smart. You know, this is not a criticism, but I think with such a big book, it's hard to kind of convey the characters in such a short amount of time, because the book, you get so much backstory. And I thought it was really smart to cast according to kind of what people expect. Like Jason Momoa. When Jason Momoa is in that role, you already know, if you know Jason Momoa, you kind of know that character. You know what I mean? You don't need to spend as much time. You're like, I get it. This guy is a bad, you know what, and he obviously, you know, he can kick butt, and he's vigilant and honorable. Oscar Isaac, you know, he can bring that kind of gravitas. You get it. He's
goodness.
serious. He was so good in this. I get goosebumps how
so
great
good.
he was. That one scene where he's in the chair, you know, kind of like that. But you kind of get Chalamet. Obviously, you get more time with him and his mom, who I thought his mom was incredible. Like Rebecca
Hall.
On her name, I think. Rebecca
Yeah,
Hall.
Rebecca
Ferguson?
Hall. Or Ferguson.
Is it Ferguson? Or yeah,
That's right.
She was. I mean, their dynamic and chemistry together was great. And like, who was the other one? Oh, even Brolin. I mean, like, you know what you're getting. I thought it was so smart how they casted, where you kind of already have these preconceived notions of these characters just by based who they cast, and so, and I thought, you know, I was a little worried with Dune. I've never read the books, but I know it's kind of a tough story to just tell in general to the masses. It's like, all right, how are people going to react to such a different Lord of the Rings? It's easy. You know, you got elves, you got dwarves, there's a ring, you have to go on a quest. I mean, I think it's a little more straightforward than the politics with Dune. And I like that he didn't really try to over explain anything. He just let you kind of figure it out. And I think it works.
There's a certain economy of there's a certain economy of storytelling that he employs, where there are certain details that we need to know, but he's a good he did a really good job of cutting away the stuff we don't, right? The extraneous details that the audience does not need to get bogged down in, and just kind of keeping the core ideas there and introducing them in ways where he'll like he's really good at connecting what we need. So for example, when you talk about how good Oscar Isaac is, there's one scene when they're on their home planet where him and Paul they just meet together on the Highlands somewhere.
Oh,
and it's just a very
my favorite scene.
It's a very small scene, but it does so much to connect the idea that these are this is a family that cares for each other, which is something you really need as you go along in that movie, or you need to feel that. And he's really good at making those scenes work that well.
Yeah, it really helps that Denis Villeneuve is a fan of the original text, and he knows it so well. So he's able to sift through, all the details and really pull out those gems.
He strategically wanted to make this movie when the studio first got the rights. He said, I think he was promoting Arrival or one of his movies, and someone asked him, hey, if you could make any movie next, what would you want? And he knew they just got the rights, and he said, Dune. He said, I've always been a fan, and I love that story. And he said within a week they called him to make it. You're right. I mean, it just shows when you have someone passionate. There's two things. When you have someone, I know I'm going to attack someone here, but when you have someone who's passionate about the work that they're doing, the story, either grew up with it or anything, and one that are capable and talented enough to do it. With Denis Villeneuve, he pulls that off. With Raphael, the guy from Wheel of Time, I'm sorry, he does not. That's where he cannot pull it off. Sorry, I didn't want to get into a Wheel of Time attack mode, but. That's. I'm just
I
saying,
haven't seen the show. I haven't read the book, so.
No, I don't care. He's just a good guy, but it's true. It's like he's very passionate about the subject matter. But in that case, I don't think he's capable to do it. Whereas Villeneuve, he clearly is. I mean, this guy's made masterpiece after masterpiece. I'm with Ian. Arrival, I think that's one of the best films I've ever seen. I think it's still his best movie. And it's just, he learned from Roger Deakins on a few movies. That's why it looks so good. I mean, it was the whole package. So there's probably,
but also the source material, like the source material itself has what it takes to be this really good story. So whether it's with Arrival or Dune, like nods to the original creators.
Yeah, because it's a massively influential book. Like you just mentioned Wheel of Time. Like Wheel of Time takes a lot from this book, and Star Wars takes a lot from this book. There's many huge properties after this that were very strongly influenced by Dune. So yeah, it's got a solid pedigree behind it for sure.
And that means a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And he pulled it off.
For sure. All right, that was Dune. I'm sure many people's number one, just like Ian. But Ian, you're number 3. I have not seen this. And I do want to say on Dune, that's the only movie that was on all 3 of our lists. So, very interesting.
Oh, yes, it was.
Yeah. All right, you're number 3.
Okay, so my number 3, I'll be interested to see where this goes. So it's Eternals, which is the Marvel movie with a bunch of characters that nobody knows. Because I certainly didn't know any of them going into this movie. And it's interesting because it's not very well received, and most Marvel movies are quite well received, at least. But this one wasn't, and not just by critics, but not necessarily by fans either, which is interesting. So when I went to see it, I knew there was some of that negativity behind it, but I went the other way. I actually found it quite intriguing, and I thought it was really well done. It's not perfect. Like I think there's places they could have gone a little bit further with the weirdness to it, but I think it's actually quite a more, I guess I should say, so it's the Eternals, which is like a group of superheroes that are cosmic beings that have kind of been around for the history of the Earth is the story there. And they've kind of always been here, but never really made their presence known. And then it's kind of telling their story. And expanding the Marvel scope, I suppose. And I thought it was just really interesting. First, the story goes places I didn't expect it to. Like, there's quite a few twists and turns that kept me genuinely intrigued. I didn't know any of these characters, but I think the movie mostly does a pretty good job of letting you learn who they are for the most part. And it's a
Hmm.
big cast.
I agree.
Some get sidelined, but for the most part, I
Yeah.
would say you learn the characters pretty well. And I just also think it's a lot more thoughtful than most of these Marvel movies are. Like it's exploring some pretty deep themes. And like when I'm talking deep themes, I'm
Hmm.
talking like religious belief, right? And
Yeah.
the idea of fate or versus determinism. Like it's exploring these ideas in interesting ways. And yeah, I was really impressed with it, honestly.
I saw Eternals, and I really didn't know what to expect aside from what I saw in the trailers. Because, like you, like I didn't know these characters, I didn't know, all the history. What I did appreciate about the film is that, and I don't know if you took this, you had this view as well, Ian. What you see in the trailers, it isn't actually representative of what happens in the movie.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I think I'd agree there.
okay. So like there were moments that happen, before or after the scenes that you see in the trailer that I'm just like, whoa, this gives me a different feel than what I saw in the trailer. And I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed that. Um, my issue with the film was I felt that the storytelling was a bit clunky. There are a lot of characters to try to weave together, and there's a lot to establish, and it just was a bit of a rocky start for me. And then towards the end, I was like, it, I couldn't, I couldn't see the film as its own thing because it's part of the Marvel universe, and I was like, how does this fit in the whole Marvel, like all of this Marvel backstory and all of the content that I've already seen? And I had a really hard time with putting that in context. So that took away from my enjoyment.
That's fair. I just kind of let it wash over me, I guess. I don't know how it's going to play in. Like, obviously it has to, because there's some pretty
Yeah,
big things that happen. But,
right.
I don't know.
And I think that's,
I just thought it was so bold.
sorry,
I was excited to see where it was going.
if I had seen it as its like own thing, I think I would have enjoyed it more. And same thing with Spider-Man. Like there are just like moments where I'm like, you're in the Marvel universe. There are all these other characters. Like, how can you let this happen? What is the response? Like, it's very hard to isolate that, okay, just focus on what the story is within this scope. But that, I guess that's more of a me thing.
Yeah, I don't really.
No, I think that's a
I think
fair.
I'm okay with that, but yeah.
I think that's fair. I think that's I've seen that brought up the last few Marvel movies where the the success of them kind of breeds this question of the further we get into their storylines, where like I'll just say the multiverse or whatever. You're going to have these questions like, what's this person doing? Why wasn't this person involved? And that stuff like that. It's hard to kind of just take a film at the film's just as it is, which is
Hmm.
I think that's just a Marvel centric, not maybe not problem, but it's its own unique thing that they kind of have to deal with. Yeah, I didn't see Eternals. Comes out on Disney Plus for free in January. I will do that. I'll ask you guys.
I
I
do
heard,
recommend it.
yeah, I mean, you guys are selling it. You both liked it. Everyone else I've heard is not too thrilled with it. But the most of the part, so you say they do get a decent amount of character work in? Because I've heard there's so many characters that the ones that do take a back seat or don't show up within the first hour, like Brian Tyree Henry, I think. If people love him,
Oh,
but he
I
doesn't
know.
show up
Yeah.
till later, they thought. And there's a romance, there's a main romance in there. And then there's a secondary one that works way better than the main one. I mean, I feel like most of the qualms are about are about the characters, and it is a big cast. I mean, I thought I was I can see if it's a little uneven trying to fit everyone in and kind of connect with.
It is a bit uneven,
Hmm.
but at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go with it because this, I mean, I'm guessing that this is not gonna be the only Eternals film, and like these other characters are going to continue, um, in the Marvel universe. So I'm just like kind of like this is just the first installment of this arc.
And there's definitely a hierarchy of which characters are important, more important than
Yeah.
the others in terms of the story. And I think, but when you think about it, that's almost every movie. Like when you have
Yeah.
movies of this big characters, some are the central characters, some are secondary
Yep.
characters, some are tertiary. And yeah, so there's a group of 10, but they don't all hold the same weight in the story. And I think that's okay. I don't think they need to.
I would also say like who the actual main character is, I was not expecting
No,
that.
they hid that
I was
in
surprised.
they hid that in the promotion for sure. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
also surprised. And I pleasantly, like I thought the main
Yes,
character was
pleasantly
really good.
surprised.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'll just ask you: are you a fan of Chloe Zhao? Did you like Nomadland? I was pretty lukewarm on
I've
that
never
movie.
seen
I did not like
I've never seen
Nomadland. I actually, but although I will say, I wish that she would have put a little bit more of her stamp, even not liking Nomadland that much. There were glimpses of things that, like her visual style and things like that, that I think she should have leaned into more, and I think would have made this movie a little bit more special. Even like you can tell that she's reining herself in at times, but there's some scenes that are just gorgeous. Like yeah, very very nice looking.
All right, so Eternals at number 3. There you have it. So now we're all going into our top 2. This is the big stuff. I will skip mine. Mine was No Way Home, remember? I have no shame about it. I'm not living in hyperbole, I swear to God. Anyway, but we'll go
You're allowed
Panda.
to,
So,
absolutely.
no, I know. I definitely. So Panda, you're number 2. I haven't seen it. I've heard a lot of people who love it, and I've heard people who are disgusted by the end of the movie and how it kind of is a disgusting corporate cash grab and it's everything wrong with movies. So I want to hear you defend it.
Well, he set you up for that, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just say what the title is. At my number 2 spot is Free Guy, which I was so skeptical when I saw the trailer the first time. I was like, what the heck is this film? And it felt a bit like Lego Movie vibe to me.
Definitely.
And I liked Lego Movie, but I was like, but it works with the Legos. With the Free Guy stuff, there was a film a long time ago. I think it was called like Branded or something. It was like this very small film where like all these corporations and brands were basically sentient kind of things and feeding off of humanity and the economy. Anyway, so the way that the trailer was, it gave me kind of that vibe. It reminded me of that film, and I did not like that film. And so I was like, I don't know. But I watched the trailer again and a few more times. I'm like, you know what? It's growing on me. And I do love Ryan Reynolds and his humor and the way that he's able to be funny but direct, and still so likable. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this film. And I watched it with my brother. He had already seen it, and he was like, yeah, I liked it. And I was like, okay, all right, we're gonna watch this film. And I just had so much fun. I loved it, like the humor, and what I wasn't expecting is how deep the themes that they actually explored were. I mean, like existential kind of themes, and it has a lot of heart, which you kind of expect because it's Ryan Reynolds. But there are also like small moments in there because it's also a Disney property. You got to see some fun, like little references throughout, and it's a film that's like set in a video game world, so they can do like whatever they want. And Taika Waititi, there's also that. So
Yeah, he's definitely something in that
yeah.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
So you saw it, Ian? You watched this as well?
Yes, I have seen Free Guy. I don't really like it.
Yeah, there you go. Don't hold back. Come on.
But I don't know. Like, I'm not going to begrudge Panda for liking this movie. Like, my wife loved it too when we watched it. Like, she came out of that movie loving it, and for a lot of the reasons. Like, Ryan Reynolds is a very likable guy. I do agree with you that it does touch on some interesting ideas. Like, it's almost, I think in my review I said that there's kind of an argument against nihilism in this movie, which is, which is nice. And I do think it has something to say about just the nature of creating art as well. I think they touch on that a little bit too. But I don't know that I found it as fun though, personally.
It did not melt your cold heart.
No, I guess not.
So, when I was about like No Way Home, where I was saying there's moments that are fan servicey, but are help the story. Whereas some people have complained again. I haven't seen it, but I watched a clip of the scene. The end of the scene, there was a fight scene, and you said this is a Disney property, and the film uses the fact that this is a Disney property to, I would say, so I think people are saying it's kind of, is this where we're getting to in film? Where all a company or a movie studio has to do is insert these like, oh my God, look at this moment. It's, to kind of get excitement in the face of everything else, storytelling or anything else. I understand it's cool. And again, I haven't seen the movie, so I'm not judging. I probably would flip out with this too. But I do think it's a kind of worrying trend where studios are looking at this and say, we could just do this in other films, totally unrelated to this, even though I know it has a video game centric backstory. But I do think people were put off by that exact moment I think I'm talking about. Are you at the end?
I would agree if the rest of the film was meh. Which for me, like, the rest of the film stands on its own, and those like fan service moments were just like cherry on top. And I mean, like with Spider-Man, there was a particular reference at the end, like to say, hey, I am a Disney family.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember. But anyway, so I think those moments, like, if that was all that was exciting in the film, then yeah, that would be a problem. But you enjoy the rest of the film even if that moment wasn't in there.
Good point. So last thing, I'm not poo-pooing. Just what are your guys' feelings right now on Ryan Reynolds? I grew up loving him. Do we feel like he's a little oversaturated? Like you said, when you see Ryan Reynolds, you kind of know what you're getting a little bit. Like, it's just what he gives off, the type of performance. I mean, he was in Red Notice.
Yeah.
Red Notice, I'm sure he was the same character as he was in Free Guy, and the same one he was in when he popped up in a certain Fast and Furious spinoff. I just feel like, is he oversaturating himself, or are we not sick of him? Are you guys still good?
Personally, I am not sick of him. Like, I will watch his commercials for his like cellular company that I can't even use because he's Canadian. That's a Canadian company, So personally, I am not sick of him.
I feel like we are always mean to our comedy actors because what draws us to them and makes them funny, eventually it's exactly what you say. It gets oversaturated and suddenly we turn on them for doing what they always did to make us laugh. And so I always kind of rebel against that. So I'm fine with him. Like, he can keep doing what he's doing. It's fine.
He's Canada's darling. Did you see that Canada actually made an appreciation video for Ryan Reynolds?
I'm Canadian and I did not see that. No.
I will send you the link.
You should do that.
But yes. Anyway.
Okay. No, I love him too. I mean, I grew up on him. Just Friends is like one of my favorite comedies ever. I think it's one of the most underrated Christmas movies. I consider a Christmas movie.
I don't think I've seen it.
Never seen Just Friends? Oh my! Him, Anna Faris. No.
No.
That was filmed in the city just south of me.
I need to watch it.
Where was it filmed?
In the city just a couple hours south of me.
Oh.
In Regina. Yep. It's notable because nobody else films in Regina ever, especially not in winter, but they did it for some reason.
Yeah, it looked like it snowed a lot there. It was, Fun fact: in high school, as a gift, my girlfriend at the time got me the movie Just Friends. We did not date much longer
Oh.
after that. I don't know.
That is a
I
sign.
think,
Wow.
Ouch.
yeah, it was worth it because that movie was fantastic. Uh, anyway, moving on from that sad topic. The next number two. Okay, so I almost put this in, and this is Ian's number two, and it is indeed quite the film.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to go with my number 2 is The Green Knight, which came out this summer and directed by David Lowery, which is kind of like a Arthurian legend. So it definitely fits in the fantasy category. There's a lot of fantastic elements to it. And it's like based off of an old tale of Sir Gawain and his... Basically, I don't really understand the motivation behind it, but there's this giant tree guy, and then he fights the giant tree guy, and then about a year later, he has to go get his head cut off from the giant tree guy. That's the story. Why? I don't know.
Uplifting.
Yeah. But it's interesting because it's a movie that's kind of told as you would expect one of these old tales to be written. Like it's a series of vignettes, basically, on his journey to do whatever he's doing. And I just thought it was an interesting tone that you don't really see much in movies anymore. And I enjoyed it. There were parts where I was like, okay, I don't know that I'm going to like this movie, but there were some of these vignettes that didn't really work as well for me as some others did. But the ending kind of tied it all together. I think it has a really strong ending that really worked well for me. And yeah, I really enjoyed it overall.
Yeah, I think I popped on the Discord right after I saw this movie, and I was like, I just walked out of the theater in a daze, and I don't know if it feel good about it or bad about it, but I was like, that was an experience. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Did you see this, Panda?
I didn't. I do regret not having seen it.
So I'm not going to do spoilers, but essentially, the story, Ian hits it, but it's kind of about a character who desperately wants to be a knight. That is his goal. He sees the
Mm-hmm.
glory in being a knight. He thinks, he in the beginning he brags to his girlfriend and mom that's what his goals are. And essentially, I took from the story that he makes these motives in each vignette, as Ian said, that were kind of without honor, I'd say. Some of them more subtle
Mm-hmm.
than others. And at the the end of the story, he has to fight this or go back to this tree guy, as he said, and get his head cut off. And it is a powerful ending, but I don't really want to spoil the themes. But I guess there's more. Just showing there's more to knighthood than the glory, and that could be interpreted for anything. There's more to
Mm-hmm.
being successful, to getting to that successful spot. On the way, you have to live your life in this manner. That's what it's
Mm-hmm.
about: living your life with honor, not getting to that thing. And the way it's told, and like you said, these little chapters with new different like characters he meets, things like that. It's honestly an experience. So I was kind of in a daze, and the visuals in this movie, again, for the low budget, I was kind of astounded. I mean, there's a scene with these walking giants where I was, I don't know, I was just kind of, again, in the theater by myself because no one else saw this. But I was just looking around like, this is incredible stuff. And if you like that kind of, yeah, it's like Arthurian folklore. Like when I think of
Yeah.
Arthurian, I think of like kind of like, I don't know, more medieval. And this was, but it was definitely had like a folklore feel to it, where it's kind of you don't know what's real and what's not
Right.
myth.
More than historical,
It was
right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so unique, and it was just wasn't what I was expecting. The trailers, I think you just don't know. It just looks like a revenge, not revenge, but like I don't know, maybe more epic, I guess. And it's just really more personal. And that actor is just Dev Patel. I mean, he was so good in this. I know he's not going to get a Best Actor nomination, but and unfortunately, I don't think this movie's going to get a visual nomination, which is a crime. But yeah, I could put this in anywhere in my top 10 from 1 to 10, and it would make sense. It's really, I mean, if you're a fantasy fan, I feel like you have to see it. It might not be what you're expecting. It probably isn't, but you'll leave the theater and you'll think about it the next day. Like, it's really something else. So Panda, go for it.
I will have to figure out where I can see this film.
Yeah, I'm not really sure actually. Haven't
Yeah,
Seen it pop. I'm not even sure it's up for rental or anything yet.
I
I
hope
will
so.
find or wait.
That's again, that's the problem with like, it's just tough. Just let us see the movies. Let's,
Yeah.
I feel like it's been so hard to see. Like, Licorice Pizza just released. I'm like, I've been waiting like 3 months for this movie. Sorry, going off, but man, it really makes it harder to see movies these days with so much
Yeah.
content out there. It's like, come on. But
Yeah.
that's a great pick. That movie is. I should have put it on my list. Suicide Squad. What was it? All right, so we're going into our number ones. Um, I'll start off
Why
with
don't
my
you
number.
do it?
Yeah, I haven't said
Yeah.
one yet. So my number one, and I don't think either of you have seen this. It's
I have not.
Mitchell's versus the Machines. It was released on Netflix, I think, way earlier in the year. It's from the same production company as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The art
Mm.
style is not, it's not the same exact like that, but it's equally unique. It's its own thing. I've never seen any art style like it. Just like when I saw Into the Spider Verse, I'd never seen anything like it. And it's essentially about a family of four. Katie is the main character. She's about to go off to college. She's sick of her family. She can't wait to get on her own and go to film school and do cool stuff with friends. And her dad said instead of flying, well, we'll take a family trip and drive there, and it'll be a road trip. And she said to her, this is like the end of the world. This is the worst thing that could happen. And then literally it is the end of the world. Robots attack. And if I'm a, I have a stepdaughter and she's like 10 years old, and it's a father daughter story that makes me like laugh with tears and then makes me literally
Mm.
cry with tears. I hate to be that guy that's on a podcast saying, "Oh, I'm a dad and I have a daughter," but when you have
No.
kids, you see movies in different lights. You just watch them; they mean
Mm-hmm.
different things to you. As when you're a teenager. And this one is so the balance between the same with Into the Spider Verse. There were such heartfelt moments between Miles and his parents. The same goes here with Katie and her father. Just growing up and kind of the things that were you did with your parents when you were 9 or something are now obviously embarrassing, and you can't now you're a teenager and you can't wait to start a life of your own. It's so it's not a original story, but it's done so well mixed in with, I mean, the dad's played by Danny McBride. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, the movie is so funny. They do so many these, the quick cuts to flashbacks to previous vacations that are just so
Mm.
timed well, and just I literally laugh out loud funny. The voice casting is incredible with like I said, Danny McBride, Abby Jacobson, Maya Rudolph as the mom. And then you have like bit players like
Oh.
Conan O'Brien and Beck, Beck guy from Saturday Night Live, and it's just Jay Farrow. It's just loaded, and it's so well done. There's giant Furbies that attack in this, and it's really I can't wait to see what the studio does more. Obviously Into the Spider Verse really put them on the map, and they do the Lego movies. Phil Miller, the Lord and Miller Company. But I mean, this was when we talked to do this, say who our top five, and see if we can think of some. This
Mm-hmm.
was immediately my number one. I mean, it was like the
Hmm.
easiest
Oh, okay.
decision. And real quick, I don't know about you guys when you pick movies or your favorite movies of all time. If you just like close your eyes and thought about them, I would guarantee your top whatever. They're all very rewatchable. You've always put it on. You're always like, this is a
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
comfort. And that's for me. It sneaks right in there. I mean, it's just you don't
Yeah.
get sick of watching it. And you guys would love it. I really think it's incredible, and I hope it wins Best Animated Feature this year. It's a lot of competition this year, I think, but I would love to see it happen. So
I've been
Awesome.
meaning to see this film, so with your very high praise and endorsement, I am definitely bumping it up to my on my list.
it's on Netflix.
Yeah, this is actually recommended to me by my 6-year-old niece. But it's also kind of the reason it's
Aww.
also the reason I didn't see it, because she's like, you should watch this, and I said okay. And then I thought, well, actually it'd be cool to watch it with her, and so I was kind of waiting and holding off of like, because she's so funny to watch movies with. She's always got a running commentary,
Yeah.
but then that just never happened. So I was holding out, so I haven't seen it yet. But
It does have it's one of those movies where it's obviously very funny for kids, but I think it's more adult. It's not even adult humor. It's
Mm.
just like it mixes the two kind of comedies really well, where it's super funny. And me personally, I watch animated kids not just with my daughter. I watch by myself all the time. It's not even like close.
Oh,
I
same.
Yeah,
yeah,
me
I love
too.
animated films, and so it holds up again.
Wally has a special
I
place
would.
in my heart.
Oh,
That is a
I love
heartbreaking movie.
Wally.
Yes. So
Yeah,
yes, I would
great
implore
pick.
everyone to watch it. I will go on the Discord and tell people I'll pay them to. Well, it's on Netflix. I'll pay my month subscription for people to watch it.
Oh
Just
my
doling out money
goodness.
as always. Um,
No, no, no. Don't do that.
so Dune was your number one, Ian. Any
Dune
last
is my
words on
number
it?
one.
Did we get it all out in there?
I think we said enough. It's fantastic. It's my top, not just science fiction and fantasy of the year. It's my top movie of the year. Probably my top movie of like the last 3 years. So there we go.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved it
Nice.
wholeheartedly.
I'll just say I'm gonna be. It's gonna get nominated for the Oscar for Best Picture, Best Director, and I'm gonna be rooting for it like I was rooting for Parasite, just begging it to win. I don't think it will, but
Mm.
we'll all
I
be
don't
rooting
think it
for
will
it.
either, but
I really hope it does. But well, I,
there's a lot of categories that should win though that I hope. So we'll see.
yeah, visuals it'll be
I'm
good.
hoping.
All right, Panda, you're number one. I love this movie. I'm ashamed I didn't put it on it, but I did rave about this one.
All right, my number one. When you were saying that, hey, I bet your number ones are like the most rewatchable, for me, you are correct. I saw this film 3 times in theaters with different people. But every time somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to watch it?" I was like, "Well, I've already seen it." But you know what? Yes, I'm gonna go see it again with you. It's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And is this a perfect film? No. However, it is a nearly perfect film for me. Um, and it's not just like because I love the Marvel Universe. Um, there are very sentimental reasons for me why I really, really love this film. As an Asian American, like it was so incredible to see the representation on the screen in a way that was not forced and it was not just the stereotypes. It felt real. There are particular moments that I can think of where it was like, wow, this is like I have experienced this. This is authentic to me. Um, and also Aquafina, like I love
Yeah,
Aquafina.
she's great.
I wish I could be her friend.
I've been on her
Um,
train since she arrived. I love her.
She just has that charisma. She's just kind of like Florence Pugh. Like when they're on screen, they steal the show.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm also sentimental about this one because um, it's the first film that I saw with my boyfriend, and it was like at the beginning of our Disney trip that we were doing in September, and it really set the tone for that trip for us. Like how much we enjoyed it. We now have inside jokes because of it, and it just has so much more meaning to me because of that on top of everything else. So for me, this is my number one pick for SFF movies this year.
that's awesome.
Lovely pick.
Yeah, and yeah, it's so much nicer when you have that connection to it. Like you kind of feel like it was made just for you. Do you kind of,
Hmm.
and then, but
Like
not at the
there are
same time.
definitely,
Yeah,
yeah, like there are definitely ridiculous moments. I'm like, why did you go that route? But there was so much like the visuals, the character work, the way that the humor comes across. Like I've seen it 3 times and I still laugh. So yeah, it holds up.
I thought a lot of that was carried by the two main actors, like I said, Aquafina and don't want to butcher his name,
Simu,
Simu. Yep, Simu.
do.
I mean, just them on the airplane riffing about when the person's
Mm-hmm.
asking chicken or steak, was it, or something like that, or veggies, and they're like, "Oh, well, chicken." Like, well, we don't have chicken. Like chicken or steak. They're like, or I guess steak. They just together. They were just so seamlessly um, wonderful together, either as friends, platonically or not. I'm still a little unclear how that's going to shape up, but just those two together, I thought, kind of made the
Yeah.
movie. I found I love this movie. Again, rewatchable is definitely it. I thought the first hour was like perfect for a Marvel movie. I almost kind of wish we got
Mm.
more like inner city stuff where he's like that bus scene is that set piece is it's unreal. I
Mm.
mean, it really is. It's hard to take your eyes off him when he's fighting, and it kind of evoked Jackie Chan, like '90s Jackie Chan, Rumble in the Bronx,
Mhm.
stuff like that, where he's using props to fight, and I couldn't get enough of it. I I'll say, oh, and the villain Tony
Yeah.
Liu, is
Mhm.
that actor? He, I mean,
Yeah.
I, I love like people say, villain parts are obviously one of the best parts, and usually they get big time actors. It started after
Mhm.
Die Hard, kind of. You're going to get these big actors to play villains, and or maybe Die Hard 3 has started. But he like legitimately is a fantastic actor. You could say he is punching above his weight in this movie.
Mhm.
Like he should not be in it. And I thought he was one of the best villains in Marvel. I don't think it's the flashiest
I
villain,
agree.
but the way he can I'm not going to give a spoiler, but there's a moment at the end where he just looks at his son, and just the way he acts with his eyes is so powerful. The speech he gives, that seriously, it's kind of, it tells so much, and just like brings it all together, his relationship with Shang-Chi. And it's like, man, that is like a lot of that just, I don't know. I think people take stuff like that for granted, physical acting and
Mhm.
what you can
Yeah.
do with just,
Yeah.
and especially in at the end, it's a lot of CGI. When they're acting, that's all on a green screen. And the things he's doing, I loved
Yeah.
him. And I didn't, I'll ashamed to admit, I haven't seen much of his work. So I did watch the long kung fu movie where there's a lot of leaves going around. They swoop. I forget what it's called, but anyway. Oh man, I'm blanking on it.
You
Are you
probably need to
talking
give
about
us a little
Crouching
bit more.
Tiger?
No, no, it's not Crouching Tiger. It's
Oh,
oh, what
okay.
that is. It's like it's a kung fu one,
It's
but
okay.
it's all right. I didn't do enough research. But anyway, he was in it, and it's like, man, I got to go through his whole
Oh, okay.
filmography now after watching it.
Well, I think
I
his
was laughing. I was laughing when you mentioned his eyes because there is a video on YouTube about him acting with his eyes. It's like 10 minutes long.
Really?
I will find it and I will send it to you. Yeah.
if you
Or
want
you can
to,
look it up.
one of his more notable roles is Yeti is a movie called In the Mood for Love, which is
Oh,
kind of like
it's on
this.
HBO Max, and I'm
Yeah,
ready
I would
for it.
highly
Got it
recommend it.
queued up.
I think you'll like it, and he's very very good in that movie. But I agree, he's a fantastic villain here too.
Mhm.
It was Hero. That's what it was. Jet Li.
Hero
Yeah,
is what
sorry.
you're thinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hero.
Yeah, good. Anyway, but yeah, In the Mood for Love. That was like the first one where I was like, all right, I'm watching this because it's more of like a drama. Like I want
Mhm.
everything he has to give. I need this person in my life. And so going back to Shang-Chi, you got if to give your favorite scenes, but this had one of my favorite scenes in the whole year of like any movie. Just
Ooh.
one scene. The bus scene was great, but the scene where his father meets his mother and that kind of dance
Ah.
fight, that was beautiful. I mean, that again, I the way with the leaves and the wind and the dance fighting and kind of just establishing someone falling in love with in a quick 5 minutes. That if that's all you have, that was a beautiful way to do it. And man, that movie, I'm with you, Panda. There's so much to like about it. But
Yeah, good pick. Great number one.
I will say, and this is kind of a thing with Marvel films. I do wish not every end of the movie had to be a big CGI battle. I understand why they had to do it, I guess, but kind of in the WandaVision TV show, they did it too, where it was going so well, and it's like, well, we need to end with a bang. I think it was cool to look at, but sometimes I wish, because like I don't know about you guys, but this movie felt the least Marvelish. Like if they didn't have any Marvel references to this, I'd be like, this is just a cool martial arts movie,
Mhm.
magical martial arts movie. And I really appreciated that kind of standing on its own in a sense.
It's really only at the end.
Yeah, it's
Like
really just the
it's
end.
kind of sprinkled throughout, but like at the end, then it was like, okay, yes, you are part of the Marvel universe.
Right.
But also, they need that
Yeah.
ending to unabashedly put it on this science fiction fantasy list because it's undoubtedly
It's true.
fantasy at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Wow. If it wasn't
Well,
for
I
that, it
mean,
wouldn't be
there's
on
the
my
whole Ten Rings
I
thing,
suppose, yeah.
like leading up. Yeah.
So yeah, that's our list. I thought that was a really cool list. All of ours. There's again not a lot of overlap. We talked about a lot of you know a lot of different things, a different kind of movies. I think everyone would enjoy who's listening.
Yeah, aren't you proud of me that I did not put F9 in my top five?
Oh, I love the Fast and Furious films. I'm not Fast. I think I've argued on the Discord. I think Fast Five's like legitimately a top three action movie ever. I know Ian didn't was a little let down by it, but I that's a masterpiece.
I liked, which is the one I liked? I liked the sixth one quite a bit.
The sixth one, yeah.
The sixth. Oh well, we can talk about this later.
Well, I guess we'll try to wrap up a little bit, but how about we talk about some honorable mentions? There's a lot we didn't mention or talk about because we only had five. I'll let Ian. Do you want to start or Panda? Whatever.
Sure, I only have a couple.
Yeah.
One I'll mention is kind of it's a goofy popcorn whatever movie, but it's Godzilla versus Kong, which I enjoyed quite a bit.
Thank you.
There's some human elements to that I don't really care, but Godzilla and King Kong themselves, oh, they're awesome. I love the character designs, and it's just a lot of fun, especially for fans of the old movies. And then the other one would be the Pixar movie Luca, which I'd say doesn't rise to the heights of Pixar, but it's a nice, fun, fantastical story that
I've heard it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun, and I think it would be a really good one for kids. So I guess those will be my two.
Luca, I just liked I hate being this guy about length, but it was super short, and it was like I kind of liked that. It was probably one of the shortest Pixar movies Again, I love long and short movies, but it was just very noticeable how it was like kind of like a cute, quick story that if you have young children, their attention spans aren't great too. So it's always nice when that happens. But yeah, visually that was another one that looked really good. Sorry, Pam.
Oh no. I haven't seen either of those, but the Legendarium did do an episode talking about Godzilla versus Kong. I did listen to it, and they actually made me want to see the movie because before I was like, it's another Godzilla film. Do I really want to see it? But yeah, they made me want to see it, and so I will.
It's entertaining. It's what you want out of those kind of movies. I mean, you're not bored. Say what you will for Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, but it kind of drags a little bit. And the most important thing, it answered the question of who would win. And thank goodness for that.
It did actually answer the question, which I appreciate.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. And they were correct.
It was the right answer too.
Yes.
Panda, how about you?
I mean, I've already mentioned every single one of the ones that I've seen, but I will just say, like, I know you're not a fan, Yeti, but I'm really, really glad that Zack Snyder got the opportunity to redo Justice League because the first one was atrocious. And I mean, I am actually not a Snyder fan. I do not like his Superman movies, and Batman versus Superman was terrible. But I think he really did do justice for the Justice League. Like, I love the animated Justice League shows and the films. And I was very excited that one of the characters that had never been adapted into a live action film got the opportunity to show up in this one. And like, that character was not present in the theatrical release. And even though the Snyder Cut is really, really long, just treat it as like, you know, a four-parter miniseries. Yeah.
I guess I more am just the way it came about. I feel like the fan base got a little toxic and kind of this out. There's more of the point where it's like, if we're letting that kind of behavior dictate sometimes, there's passion and then there's just, I don't know. I think that it's a weird line. So that was more, it's nothing against
I see what you mean.
You know. But I
mean, we're seeing that with George R. R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss, right? Like, in the book community, and definitely. I totally agree. Like, that's just really uncalled for. But I do appreciate like what he made, and the the mistakes that he fixed. Because like the villain in the theatrical cut was like, what? That is so disappointing,
Yeah.
and it was so much better in the new version. Anyway, yeah.
I will agree that it improved the movie. Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, it did improve the movie. I agree. I don't know if I'd put a director's cut of an old movie on a 2021 list, so that's my. I personally wouldn't do it.
It came out in 2021.
You can do what you want, but
it's basically a new film.
that's
Yeah,
Like
it really
it's a
is.
new film.
yeah.
And sorry, one more thing. There's a very emotional scene to me, and I mean it's meant to be emotional, but like if you've seen the animated Justice League, like I think it
Yeah.
hits even more with this one particular character, and it just I don't know why they would have taken it out the way they did from the theatrical release, but anyway, yeah.
I will say, lastly, it is just such a rarity to get a director's 100% clear vision of something and for like a full 4 hours of it. I mean, that's when is that going to happen ever again with the
Yeah.
way studios need to make money and kind of control things. I mean, again, it is kind of rare to see that for sure.
Yeah. I do think streaming has made that more of a possibility because they don't have to deal with the constraints of distribution, like when you have to do it in theaters.
Right.
But yeah,
I
agree.
All right, I'll run. I think I've seen more movies than you guys because I have no life, but I'll run through some that are definitely worth watching. Actually, one that's not. But so animated films. You guys kind of brought it up. Raya and the Last Dragon, or Ray and the Last Dragon, was an incredibly fun movie. I mean, I don't think it, breaks any, it's nothing crazy new, but it's so fun. It's a great adventure story. Aquafina is great in it, as she always is. I've been with her since The Farewell. I love her. I just watched Encanto, the Colombian-inspired musical, fantasy musical. That is like, oh, that was one of the best movies I've seen this year. I'm like debating. I didn't want to put it. Only
Wow.
wanted one animated film in my list, but the way it's essentially about a family who all have magical powers at like a certain age. They all get it, and this one girl does not get powers. And I kind of brought up. I when I was watching it, it kind of felt like they're kind of sending this message, kind of, I'm straight, but of a gay person growing up in a family full of straight people, and kind of what that does, kind of fracturing a
Mm-hmm.
family. Again, I might have read too much into it, but I did go on Letterboxd, and like one of the first reviews I saw was something about that. So I was like, okay, I can see that might have been
Oh,
a thing.
wow.
But also the music is like one of my favorite. The music's done by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I think Disney
Mm-hmm.
hitching their
Oh,
wagon to
that's a
him
good
is one of the
strike for it.
smartest things. Yeah, one of the smartest things they've done in the last 10 years. Honestly, some of the songs I think are actually better than the songs in Moana, and I love Moana. Like, I love Moana. So, and again, a diverse movie. It's based on Colombian culture, which is always cool. Kind of what you're saying, Panda, where people are going to watch that who can relate that weren't able to relate, Okay, quickly I'll go to Mortal Kombat in the vein of Ian Godzilla versus King Kong. This was also released on HBO Max. I thought it kind of worked. I mean, I think it was interesting not to start on. It didn't really do the tournament style for Mortal Kombat. It was like an origin story, which was weird. But I came out of it wanting a sequel. I liked how it was gory. I put A Quiet Place 2 on here, even though that's kind of horror. I think that's still more a little bit into horror, but it's
Yeah,
one of the
I was
rare
a big fan
sequels
of that,
kind
but
of, yeah, it's definitely horror. But I thought it lived up. I thought it was almost as good as the first one, if not as good. The girl actor who can't hear in that movie is honestly incredible. John Krasinski from The Office as a real talent for directing, which I never would have guessed. I'm just excited to see what else he does. Sorry, I'm trying to run through these. Have any of you heard Finch on Apple TV Plus?
I do not have Apple TV.
I have it, but only for the week free trial, so I'm probably not going to get to it.
So there's a movie called Finch. It's with Tom Hanks, and it's just him. It's kind of like Castaway, but except it's him in a post-apocalyptic world here where the sun is so bright, because I'm assuming of global warming, it goes through the ozone layer. If you walk in sunlight, you'll burn to death. So he just hangs out with this robot he made and his dog, and it's kind of like heartfelt.
Oh.
He's essentially teaching this robot to become more sentient, so when he eventually perishes, he can take care of his dog. It's really kind of moving,
Oh.
and it's Tom Hanks, so he always delivers. Yeah, it's good.
Mm.
And lastly, the one that no one should watch is Prisoners of Ghostland with Nicolas Cage. Oh my goodness, I I watched I watched this at the Sundance Film Festival, like online, and I regret every bit of watching. It's
Oh
ridiculous.
wow.
It's uh, he gets his balls exploded off. That's not an exaggeration. it's just I don't know. There's absurd, but it's not worth watching. It's like you'd think like, oh, Nicolas Cage, that happening, I'm in. No, it's just boring. I don't know what to tell you. I was so disappointed by it because it's kind of like he's like a samurai and like a mixture of samurai and western, even though they're all kind of connected. But with Nicolas Cage with like a dyed beard, like he's wearing leather, it's all very strange. But anyway,
All right.
sorry, I had to
I
monologue
will not watch it.
on this.
But it's on your honorable
All right,
mentions.
how about
Okay.
I did want to bring it up.
As a warning to everybody else,
Yeah.
don't watch this film.
Go watch Pig instead. It's not fantasy, but just watch it.
Yeah.
So how about I'll leave it. So Ian, is there any films in 2022 that you're excited about coming up? Fantasy, sci-fi.
I mean, I'm trying to come back to me. I had one, but I forget
Yeah,
it.
or
Come back to
Panda.
me.
Panda made a list of them, right?
I did. I mean, there are so many superhero movies coming
Yeah.
out as expected. I mean, there's the whole Marvel lineup, which I'm very excited for Thor and the next Wakanda film,
Yeah, me too.
and
Yeah.
also the next Spider-Verse film.
Definitely.
I'm actually looking forward to Robert Pattinson's version of Batman.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just curious to see what that's going to be like. And there is a okay, this is so ridiculous. I was thinking one day, I was like, Pixar and Disney should really make a film featuring red pandas.
Oh, I'm so happy you
I
brought
love
this
red
up.
pandas. And then like literally that day, the trailer for Turning Red dropped. And I was like, oh, well, okay, they already thought about it.
They heard your prayers.
Which I saw a trailer. Saw a trailer for that in
Yeah.
the last movie I went to, and I think it's
Mhm.
set in Canada because there was one scene where there was Tim Hortons Timbits on the table, and I'm like, interesting. I'm pretty sure this must be set in Canada, and I think it is. I think it's like in
Oh,
Toronto
wow.
or something.
I think you're right. I think it is in Toronto. So I think the concept is so ridiculous. Like the execution of the concept with the girl becoming this giant red panda is so ridiculous. I was turned off by it initially, but I'm gonna give this a chance, and hopefully it will be good.
It's probably an allegory for hormones or something. Knowing Pixar, they like to do that.
You're probably right.
Oh, Avatar 2 is supposed to be coming out. That could be interesting. Probably
Finally,
won't, but
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
see
it
what the
better
follow
be
does.
after all this time. Another trailer I saw. So I was pleasantly surprised. How long ago was it now? By Sonic the Hedgehog. I thought it was like the best Jim Carrey's been in God knows how long. And so the trailer came out for the second one, and I'm kind of pumped to see it. I grew up playing Sega. I like Tails and Knuckles. That's definitely, they definitely hooked me in with that. And that's one I'll, I guess, do the old turn my brain off one. But I mean, it looks good. I'm not gonna be judgmental too much about that one. Yeah.
What do you guys think, kind of in the same vein of video game adaptations into films, the untitled Mario film?
I mean, it's animated, right? I'm pretty sure it is.
I believe yes,
So,
because the casting is voice acting. Yes.
right. So I don't know. I always think that animated adaptations of things, it's almost like you wonder, are they really going to take it that seriously then if it's animated? But then Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse comes out, and you're like, okay, that's amazing. And so obviously, yeah, they're all into this. So I don't know. I don't know if it'll live up to the movie from the 90s.
Right. Hopefully there's a lot less drinking involved in this one. Which
I never did actually
I love
see.
the casting is, except for Mario, is fantastic. I mean, I think it's Jack Black as Bowser, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. They cast Chris Pratt as Mario, which in reality, after seeing House of Gucci, they should have cast Jared Leto because he just is. I mean, he would have nailed that role. he was born to play Mario after that. But I mean, the cast is fantastic. I think it's Illumination, so it's by the same people that did Minions. So I mean, take that with a grain of salt, but a big grain of salt. But I'm excited for it. I'm like a Jack Black. I pray at his altar. I love Tenacious D. I think he's a legitimately good actor. Like I would love to see him in more serious roles. And obviously I think he's funny. So I'm all on board on that. What about what's the other one? So there's a movie I saw that it's called Moonfall. Have you heard about this? And when we were looking, I just saw it looking it up.
Yeah, it's Roland Emmerich, right?
Yeah, this movie's like out of 1997. Well,
yeah.
It's about a moon that got knocked around the moon and now it's crashing into Earth. So this is I can't believe they're making this. I mean, I'm all in, obviously. I love Armageddon.
Yeah, I have a soft
like
spot for these disaster movies, so
me too.
I'm all on board.
Here's a controversial one. Oh no, Jurassic Park or Jurassic World Dominion. Are we just done with these movies? Does anyone care?
I was very upset. So when I went to see F9 in theaters, they showed like the first, 10 minutes of this new Jurassic World movie. And my brother and I were just looking at each other like, are we in the wrong movie? Like double checking. And it's like, no, this is the right theater. I mean, it looked interesting, I guess, but also, eh.
Yeah,
Dom Toretto pulls up and punches a raptor. Is that what you're expecting?
I was expecting that. I was like, how does this weave in?
Yeah. It's only a matter of time. It's so much more ridiculous they can go. Gotta top themselves. Yeah, I'm with you. There's just a bunch of superhero movies. I'm just gonna Black Adam, The Flash, Batman, Doctor Strange, Morbius, the one with Jared, the vampire villain, Wakanda Forever, Thor, Aquaman 2. Yeah, that's they're all. What about? Oh, this movie's ridiculous. I'm not looking forward to this. So the movie, this is what movies are coming to. It makes me so worried. The movie Lightyear with Chris Evans. They're making a movie based on Buzz Lightyear.
A prequel.
Well, it's not even about the toy. It's about the man the toy is based on. Who's asking for this? I will watch it, obviously, because I watch everything. But who's asking for it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why not?
I know.
Why not?
I just sometimes I just.
Let's remember this moment, and then like after the movie comes out and Yeti has seen it and he's raving about it, we'll replay this moment.
Wouldn't be the first time.
I see what you're saying, though. It's kind of like, how deep into these mythologies do we go? I understand the apprehension.
No original ideas. Lastly, I just want to say at the end, Nope by Jordan Peele. It'll probably be a horror, but nobody knows because
nobody knows what it's about yet.
But it might. Yeah, but I mean that's like my most excited for a film, just in general.
If it's got Jordan Peele, I'm in.
Yeah, he's won a lot of credibility. So.
Yep.
Well, we did it, guys. This was long. We went long. This was impressive.
This is like Malazan length episode here.
Except I'm a lot less confused.
Before we end, do you guys want to give your letterbox names in case anyone wants to follow you, if you know it?
I'm consistent. I am Befuddled Panda.
I am. What the heck am I on? I'm just E and O. Okay, I'm just E and O on Letterboxd.
We can hunt that down. I'm Yettibeats. I am also consistent, so you can come follow us and judge our movie ratings and reviews. It's always fun.
Right. Yeah.
But that's it. Thanks. Thank you to Craig for letting us do this, our overlord. Thanks to Horizon Brave for starting this all. And thank you to my panelists, Miss Befuddled Panda.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Ian. You can listen to him at the Cinema on Seconds podcast. In Seconds podcast. I said that right?
Cinnamon in
Yeah,
seconds.
Cinema in Seconds. It's we look at small moments in movies. We kind of take like the vibrating glass from Jurassic Park. We kind of take moments like that and talk about them, and it's fun. So if you like movies, come
I
check us
love it.
out.
I listen to every episode, and I'll judge when you guys talk trash on one of my movies. But you guys do have great moments. I like that idea. I love the little moments that not everyone.
thank
It's
you.
not the main ones people think of. It's fun. It's a good concept.
Oh, thanks. And thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I love talking about movies.
Oh, amen. Thanks for joining us. And I guess we'll see you next time in 2022.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.